Hi, this is Argonax, and we talk about things that don't matter. So, Summer Games Fest 2025 just concluded not too long ago, and I won't sugarcoat it, Internet Wanderer. It was kinda mid. It was kinda meh. Not gonna lie. This is my first time ever watching one of these shows live, and while my expectations weren't necessarily high, I was still let down. And for those unaware in the audience, my channel mostly covers Valve and their games, and my previous video before this one was me talking about the potential of Half-Life or Valve release or tease during this event. Now, granted, they didn't do any of that in this event, but believe me when I say, any disappointment that I have is completely unrelated to that. Apologies if I sound a little out of it right now. I just finished a 12-hour shift from work, and originally I wasn't planning on covering this event at all. But I was so thoroughly disappointed watching this event while I was at work that I really wanted to make this video. That's how aggressively disappointed I was. Now, before I start talking about the event in more detail, I just want to cover the Half-Life Valve obligations I have, because of course my videos underperform anytime that I don't mention Half-Life or Valve. YouTube and its algorithm is a game, and I gotta do everything I can to try to beat it, I guess, or something. I don't fucking know. Good old Jeff definitely trying to tease us, or at least unintentionally teased us. There were two notable moments when it happened, in my opinion. One was during the Dying Light showcase. At the end of the trailer, there, Crane, the main playable character, walks on screen overlooking a vista, talking to some character or just doing some interesting ending trailer hook or something like that. And for some reason, the devs deliberately placed a crowbar on screen. That's what he's wielding as a weapon. Is this me making a mountain out of an anthill? Oh, absolutely. But I know for a fact that I'm not alone in this case. A lot of people did point out that crowbar. In fact, the Half-Life subreddit and the joke Half-Life subreddit were all talking about it. And the other notable instance was during the Deadpool VR segment. Before it happened, the guy walked up on stage and gave Jeff a letter, and in it, Jeff, said the number 3.
Hey Jeffy, if you're reading this, it means 3 things.
Yes, this is the level of lunacy the Half-Life community has devolved into. The second prime number is enough to bring us into full mania mode. Which, by the way, the Silk Song and Hollow Knight community are kinda at odds, kinda starting a war with Deadpool in Marvel, I guess, because the skit that they had before they showed off the Deadpool VR trailer really rubbed Silk Song fans the wrong way.
You're gonna do me a solid and skip that Silk Song trailer so you can pimp my revolutionary VR gaming venture that will shock the industry probably. A wet one on the lips, comma, wait. All right, let's take a look.
While part of me finds it genuinely funny, I can also understand as a fan what it feels like when another company or game or whatever is kicking you while you're already down. You know, you've been waiting a really long time for Silk Song, and here comes Deadpool and their developers kind of making a somewhat tone-deaf joke, albeit kind of funny, so I'll give them that. It is a funny joke. It just feels that Hollow Knight and Silk Song is a lot more recent. You know, it's a newer IP, it's a newer title. Honestly, and not to make this joke about us Half-Life fans, but I really feel like this joke would have gone a lot better if they made it about Half-Life 3 instead of Silk Song. I feel like the Half-Life community has garnered a bigger tolerance or acceptance of these types of jokes, where Silk Song, they haven't accrued the decades of schizophrenia that we Half-Life fans have. Either way, it's nice to see that there's more VR games. But I personally am not overly excited for this Deadpool VR game, I'll be real. Which neatly allows me to segue into talking about the games that were showcased during this event, which is where most of my disappointment comes from. Events like this are big things. These events cost millions, maybe even tens of millions to fully organize. There's tons of people in these events, celebrities, talent, game developers. There's a lot of money that went behind making this event. And I really do feel like if you're going to make it the Summer Games Fest, you gotta make sure that the games you're gonna show off can justify this entire event. And as it stands right now, most of the games here are either games that you already knew about, either just you getting updates or additions to these pre-existing games, with relatively few big major reveals. Off the top of my head, the biggest reveals in this event were like the final game being the new Resident Evil game, maybe Atomic Hearts 2 and Mortal Shell 2. Personally speaking, from everything that I saw here, the ones that caught my interest the most was the End of Abyss game and Fractured Blooms. Those were the two games that caught my interest, albeit I know for a fact that these are going to be smaller games, like heavy-hitting indie games or AA games, but still, they look nice. But that being said, everything else was just updates or games that you already knew were coming. You already knew Death Stranding 2 was coming. You already knew Onimusha was on the way. You also knew about this new Dying Light game. It just seems like everything here was either small games being revealed, pre-existing big products just getting more updates and information, and like one or two big reveals. And not just that, the diversity of the games in this event was staggeringly low. I'm showing on screen just a few pages of my notebook that I wrote while I was at work because, well, I can't exactly write a script on a computer while I'm at work. But after looking at a list of all the events that was listed here, there were so many isometric, cartoony games revealed at this event. Only like 2 were not isometric. Everything else was either top-down or like on a 2D plane, and almost all of them were like lighthearted and cartoony in nature. And then on top of that, there was a lot of dark fantasy games or horror games as well. Mortal Shell, the Lies of P DLC, End of Abyss, the Game of Thrones RTS game, Onimusha, Fractured Blooms, Dying Light, Ill, Code Vein 2, the new Resident Evil game, Death Stranding. And of those games that I listed, there were 4 Souls-like games. There was also quite a few live service FPS shooter games revealed at this event as well. My point being, the games by themselves already didn't have enough oomph to them, in my opinion, and it really didn't help that the diversity of these games was not that much. Which fucking sucks because a few of these games, artistically, are amazing. In fact, a lot of those cartoony games that I just mentioned, if this event had a bigger diversity of games being revealed, those other games would have been like diamonds in the rough. Those games would have been eyebrow raisers. But as it stands, because there were so many cartoony games or indie games in this event, they just drown each other out. Like, for example, games like Felt That Boxing or Into the Unwell, those would have been very refreshing things to see. But as it stands, when they are showcased side by side with Nicktoons and Scott Pilgrim, or that Marvel 2D isometric beat-em-up, and 2 Lego games, their uniqueness really starts to go away. I just feel like they really could have done this event a lot better. Not to mention, there were so many shoutouts to the Unreal 5 engine that you would think that Epic Games funded this event. They probably did. They're listed under their partners, after all. I mean, sure, they had a few of the games being showcased here was published by them, but goddamn, there was a lot of shout-outs to the Unreal 5 engine. I mean, it's a great engine. It looks amazing, but damn, do you really have to mention it every time? Whenever there's a new Unity game, they don't say, this brand new survival crafting game brought to you on the Unity engine. They don't really do that. So you can calm down, I get it. If the game is good, the graphics will speak for themselves. You don't have to tell me it's on the Unreal 5 engine. A lot of the parts in this event also feel like it just dragged on a bit too long. Like when they were covering the Hitman section and they brought Mads Mikkelsen on stage, it just feels like they were talking just a bit too much. They were really enthusiastic. They were turning this into a podcast on stage, talking about a relatively small DLC expansion for Hitman, or like the first level or something. Like, this is a lot of talking. This is a lot of airtime being eaten up by this single segment. I get it that, you know, if you're gonna bring Mads Mikkelsen on stage, you're gonna want to give him some time to shine, some time to talk. But like, it got to the point where, in my opinion, it just felt like they were padding for time. Other things that I noticed was they showcased the Death Stranding cinematic relatively early onto the show, and then they ended the show with the Resident Evil reveal. And in my opinion, both cinematics are very, very similar. Both of them take place in white-collar business buildings. minimalistic, business casual, business smart place, one or like an office or something like that. It doesn't help that the graphic or art direction is very similar. The Sonic crossover with Minecraft was surprising. That was actually kind of cool. Also, big props to the Sonic guy on stage throwing shade at Mario Kart World. Any opportunity to shit on Nintendo is good in my book.
Unlike another kart racing game, this game will have online cross-platform matchmaking.
Overall, I just feel like this event was rather disappointing. I had no expectations coming into this event, disregarding the whatever self-imposed hype that I placed upon myself, expecting a Valve tease or something like that, which I already understand is not going to happen. That's just the way it goes. I say that there's going to be a Valve reveal, even though I know that there's not going to be. It's partially a joke, partially not really a joke, but I say it to cover my bases. Anyway, this event was just rather disappointing, and I expected more. And I'm not alone in that sentiment. A lot of people have posted reviews and comments and sentiments about it, and they just thought it was kind of okay. It was kind of whatever. So I guess I'll just leave off this video in asking you guys in the comments, what did you guys think? Did you like this event? I know that there are some games on here that a lot of people genuinely look forward to. I didn't mention it in the video, but I am also a big Resident Evil fan. Resident Evil 4 is probably one of my top 5 games of all time. So I'm genuinely looking forward to this new Resident Evil game, but it just feels like there should have been more. And this overall event was just kind of a wet fart, a wet tissue in my opinion. But anyway, I'll reiterate. What did you think, Internet Wanderer? Do you think this event was good? Comment your thoughts down below. That's going to be it from me, Internet Wanderer. Thanks for watching. Do the YouTube things.